Yeah, so pretty much the whole concept of what we do and what we serve is we have a whole menu that can be offered traditionally or plant-based at no cost to flavor and no cost to experience. So what we do is we offer chicken sandwiches, chicken bites, grilled shrimp salads, and a couple other sides, all pretty much catering to the vegan crowd, but can be made traditionally too for people who still enjoy regular meats and regular chicken and things like that. I've created this concept because I found it so hard to find a place to eat that me and my plant-based friends or significant other could fully enjoy, or we'd both say, yeah, we want to go there. Okay, if there's a good vegan restaurant, sometimes it can really hit, and sometimes it's really kind of a lackluster version of what I already really enjoy. Like if I could go get a half good vegan chicken sandwich, I'd rather just go get a real one. But my significant other, she's got to get the vegan one if she even wants a chicken sandwich. And all the time I noticed that when we were out at events, it was even 10 times harder to try to find somewhere to eat that we could both enjoy what we were getting. So that's kind of the whole point of what we bring to the table is no matter what kind of dietary restrictions you have, we're going to make something that is incredible for you to eat. Everybody with you is going to enjoy no matter how they eat. Okay, so 11:15 is kind of just like an important number to me, and mainly why I chose it as our name is because I didn't want to be stuck to a menu. As much as I think I'm going to be loving fried chicken and continuously doing fried chicken, I was worried that if I put chicken in my name that I could never do burgers if I wanted to do burgers. So I went with 11:15 because it's a really important number to me. I guess this might relate to high school students, but it was a house number originally when it came into my life of a house that I used to, party at and hang at between skateboarding sessions. And then after it was the number of that house, I just kept seeing it places. It was like assigned to locker codes for me. It was like the last four numbers of my community college ID. It was just all these different weird things. And then so I looked into what numbers kind of are, what does it mean when you see a number all the time? And it means that the universe is supposedly trying to signal something to you. And what I believe in that is that that's true. And apparently what 11:15 is a positive change is coming forward into your life. And so how I wanted to embody that through our business is we would be the positive change to break down the barrier between vegetarian and vegan eaters and meat eaters, because there seems to be a strong divide between them, and I don't think there necessarily needs to be all the time. We're at about a 60-40 split right now, which is more than I expected. The guy who sold me the truck, he told me I wanted to go vegan, all vegan truck at first. He told me, don't do that. You're gonna cut out on some business that you can have. I expected after having that conversation to be at probably a 20% vegan to 80% traditional, but we're seeing definitely a 60-40 split. 40 being vegan, 60 being traditional, which is exciting, and I think it's a little bit of a show to a food trend and how the future is going to be looking for food. I think in this year we've seen the most amount of plant-based options pop up in grocery stores. Part of might be the pandemic, but I think this has been a food trend that's kind of been on the cusp for a while, and I think we're really about to start seeing a boom in. So yeah, it's don't ever just try not to doubt yourself, because I was doubting that I was even going to sell that much vegan food after hearing some discerning information from other food truckers who said, well, we don't really sell that much of our vegan stuff, and here I am selling out my vegan stuff most of the time, and it's selling almost as much as the traditional food, which is exciting.
Restaurant.
What I like about the mobile kitchen is you can bring it anywhere, right? So especially in the times of a pandemic where you can't really have a bunch of traffic in one place, and you can't really have more than like 10 people in an area, or even that number in some places is not even allowed. We can bring the food to wherever hungry people are. So an office building of 200 people that might not get a break to go very far, might have packed a lunch. Well, they hear there's a food truck on Friday. I'd bet you probably 80% of them are going to come down and order something from a place that they rarely get to see, and B, it's brought right to them. They don't have to go drive anywhere and waste some of their break, and it's made fresh, literally right there. And I think that that's a huge plus, is being able to bring that food to people, bring it hot to people, and constantly be something that is out of the ordinary. If you're driving through your neighborhood every single day, that means you're passing these same restaurants every single day, and you've probably had them maybe once to twice a month. I don't know how much some people eat out, but I know that there's some places, if there weren't like food trucks, or if I didn't really travel for my food, I'd be eating the same thing every day. And when you bring your food truck to different neighborhoods every day, you bring a new flavor to a different area every time you do that. And it's really exciting, and it definitely makes people want to eat out when they see something that they rarely get to have or they've never had before. Driving the food truck, space. It's super small in there. We're constantly bumping into each other. There's almost, as soon as I set something down, that's an area that needed to be used by one of my coworkers. It's definitely a small space. Driving, I still, to this day, I'm trying to figure out how I can secure every single thing when I drive off. Almost every time when I park somewhere and I open the door after I'm driving, something had fallen out of its original place. Something got detached, or something possibly hit the floor, which now I can't use it because it's not sanitary. Those are my major drawbacks, along with parking. But in the time, especially of now, where we're in a pandemic at this current time, it's hard to see the drawbacks comparatively to a brick and mortar, because brick and mortars are having such a hard time right now. And food trucks have only been having more opportunity because of that. My first job was kind of like a chain restaurant, Moe's Southwest Grill. So it's similar. If you've never heard of it, similar to like a Chipotle, where you're preparing food on a line, just a thin glass between the customer's eyes and your hands preparing their food, which was something that is different than a lot of kitchen experiences, because it's a lot more pressure to have the person watching what you're doing and making sure you're doing everything correctly every single time you're making their food, right? So once I started there, I worked on the line building that food. Then I started cooking some of the food. I'd come in for prep. Then eventually I started doing some catering gigs. And then that's where I separated a little bit in my career path to food. And I started getting into retail, and I worked at Best Buy, which you wouldn't think has any kind of connection to food. Like, okay, if I've worked in retail, how would I know how to work in food? But that honed in my customer service, which is a huge part of being in any kind of industry, but especially the food industry, because your food can be pretty good, but if your customer service is poor, if you're not nice to your customers, if you don't know how to keep them coming back and keep them relying and trusting on you, then you may lose some business there. And it's an aspect that has definitely affected a lot of my meals. Like, no matter what flavor is in the meal, if I'm getting poor customer service, that meal is just gonna linger in my mind as not as good of a meal as it could have been. So I worked at Best Buy for a couple years, and then I started picking up gigs to get to music festivals for free by working on a food truck. And it was a dumpling truck out of Philadelphia called Humpty's Dumplings. And I loved the gig, but what I loved more about it than getting to see music while I was working and getting to these events for free was being in that fast-paced kitchen life, but seeing how excited the people were to come eat the food because we weren't the normal place up the road. And that's something I didn't experience at Moe's. Like at Moe's, we were the neighborhood restaurant. You have your regulars every single time. With Humpty's, every time we went to a music festival, 50% or more of the customers were new customers, and they would come back and tell us how much they loved their food, where was the next place they were going to be able to find us, sharing with us, like sharing their food with their friends back at the campsite and how all their friends loved it. And it's just so much more enthusiasm around the experience between the customers, their experience, and then sharing that with us, because we were a something they had never seen before and they rarely get to have. And that made it a lot more exciting for me than my original job at Moe's, which I loved. I've always loved crafting together a beautiful plate of food and something that tastes good, but having that extra layer of moving it around everywhere and bringing it to people that have never seen it before really brought a whole new kind of excitement to this for me. And that led me to then starting my own. And I actually bought the truck that I first ever worked on. This was the Humpty's Dumplings truck, and I bought it off him, and now I'm doing my thing with it. So. No, I didn't do any of that. I learned from people that I enjoyed their cooking. I learned from the small restaurants that I would pick up side gigs at before I picked up my food truck. I learned it from doing my own research online, watching shows, watching documentaries, reading up on cooks that I thought were interesting. I think what really started off that was this guy, Action Bronson, who is a rapper and he's a 5-star chef. So then once I got into him and his TV show about food, that opened me up to a whole new world of different chefs and different food shows. But no, it's really just been trying to create good flavors at home and experimenting within your home kitchen that showed me that this was something that I really loved to do. And as important I think the culinary school and classes are, I just didn't really know that's what I wanted to do until I was already kind of on my path of doing it. And it took a while for me to figure out that I really loved food like I do. I always thought that like everybody loves food, we have to eat food, but I wish I had taken culinary classes, and I do plan on taking culinary classes because I don't think I know nearly all the things that I can and should know. Continuously try new things. There's not ever one way to make a dish. As much as someone may preach that there is only one way to make a dish, there is not. I think that throughout my times of talking to different chefs and people who have built recipes for fried chicken, I've almost never heard the same recipe. And I'd run different parts of those recipes back to the other ones, and they had never heard these techniques before. So you can always think outside of the box with this. Just continuously break barriers and break molds. There's never one right. There's really not just one right answer with anything in culinary, which is continuously what makes it exciting. Another thing I would recommend is talk to the people in the industry. If there are restaurants that you like to go to, don't be nervous about picking their brains, because they will give you more information than you would ever think that they could. I remember being so nervous to ask some other food truck owners about what it was like, and when I finally got the guts to ask these guys and have these conversations, they gave me more information than I ever expected that they would, and I would not be able to be here without that information. If that even means picking up a side gig and doing dishes at a restaurant when you're already getting paid more at a different job, trust me, pick it up. I was getting $17 an hour at Best Buy. Then I started taking $12 an hour to wash dishes at a local restaurant. But I did it just for the experience, and everything that I learned doing that was way more costly to me than the $17 Best Buy was going to give me per hour. Knowledge is power, and any chance you have to get some knowledge from someone, take that opportunity. The owner of Humpty's Dumplings was somewhat of a mentor for sure. I mean, we definitely have different business practices. Like, he was a franchiser, and his cooking is more prep involved than it is like when it gets time to serving, he's just got to fry dumplings that are pre-made. Whereas I had a little bit of a different thing. But as far as like how to handle the truck, how to handle figuring out if I was going to actually make money by doing this, he definitely gave me a huge bunch of help to that. and don't ever lose your math skills, because I am constantly doing math day in and day out, building spreadsheets, all that kind of stuff. Like, as much as you might love a certain dish, if you're finding out that if you got to do the math before you open up and think, is this dish am I actually going to be able to sell this for a reasonable price, but also make it for cheap enough to where I'm actually paying the bills. That's important, and it's still a qualm with a couple dishes that I love. I just don't feel like I can make it at the price that I want to be able to sell it at, and I'll get there. But it's math is ever part of this culinary experience. It's hand in hand. But yeah, my mentor, the guy who sold me my truck, everyone at Hatch Kitchen. Like, I feel like anytime I walk by someone at Hatch, they drop a piece of knowledge on me, which is huge. This podcast called Food Trucker was huge for me. I'm in a Facebook group called I Am a Food Trucker, and I just post in there whenever I have a question, and I'm just flooded with response and knowledge. I would definitely say that group is probably my main mentor, as being in that Facebook group. So definitely, if this is something that you're interested in, find a group, find a community. It's not hard, especially with the internet that we have these days, and you'll just find so much information through that, and so many different techniques that'll help you out.
Action
Oh,
Bronson
definitely
earlier.
Action Bronson, for sure. Yeah, he is definitely my favorite chef. Tough to say outside of that. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy who started Fuku Burger and Fuku Noodle, I think, in New York. I can't remember his name right now. I'm spacing on it, but he is definitely one that I'm a big fan of, because fusion, I think, is when you do a fusion well, it can be done really poorly, but when you do fusion well, it is a culture shock to a lot of people. And that's what he did with that Fuku burger. Ooh, favorite skater? Wow, that is tough. I'd probably have to say either Keith Huffenagel, who unfortunately passed away this year, Gilbert Crockett, who resides in Richmond, Virginia, or Jordan Bradshaw. He's not a pro skater or anything. He's a local. He's actually owns his own landscaping company, but he skates for fun, and he skates like no one else I've ever seen skate before. I guess my last thing is you're never gonna know everything about this business. Like, I'm only a couple months into it, but every day I feel like a newborn child with how much knowledge I learn. Just after one day, I think, okay, this is it. I've learned everything. I'm totally, like, there's no way that I'm missing anything. And then the next day, it's just like a whole new book of all these different things that I never even thought about. So just always be ready to accept the knowledge that the universe or your peers or the community wants to lend you, because you can never get enough.